This is Wayward Radio, your official source for news and information on the Wayward Realms. Greetings, fellow wanderers, and welcome to Wayward Radio, your ultimate gateway of untold stories, hidden lore, and the latest updates from OnceLost Games' epic creation, the Wayward Realms. I'm Joe, your host, fellow explorer, and ready to guide you through a world of mystery, magic, and mayhem. I am very excited because we've got a bunch of guests on the show today, each one absolute heavyweights over at OnceLost Games, starting with our marketing manager, Victoria. How you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Great to have you back on the show.
Yeah,
Technical producer Kyle is here as well.
Hello.
Welcome back, Kyle. And Victor, the creative producer of Wayward Realms, is here too.
Howdy, everyone. Excited to be here.
Yeah, we got a real stacked cast today. Great to have you guys. Let's just jump right into it. Because we've got a bunch of topics that we kind of want to cover this month here on Wayward Radio. And one of the things that I think has been a big question in the community for a really long time, I think we would love to finally shed some light on this. What was the initial inspiration for Wayward Realms?
Well, I don't think it's too much of a secret, but it's pretty much Daggerfall, right? Or rather, what would Elder Scrolls 3 have been if it followed the exact same design as Daggerfall and improved upon that? And really goes back to Ted and Julian reuniting and just kind of chatting about that idea and really just wondering, like, what if, right? And that's basically it. We're making that a reality. So what would the next evolution of Daggerfall be?
Right, but what really inspired that initial conversation? I mean, it's been so many years since Daggerfall, and gosh, a lot's happened since then. So like, why now? Why not 10 years from now or 10 years ago? What was the initial flashpoint that got Ted and Julian together and said, now's the time?
Well, people who have followed us for a long time know that Indigo Gaming, who great YouTuber, he did an interview with Julian Lefay, and that wound up catching the attention of Ted Peterson. And so he reached out to Indigo, and he wound up doing an interview as well. Both wound up being like 4-hour long interviews, just talking about the Elder Scrolls and their thoughts on the game and games in general. And so they just kind of got back in touch at that point. And really that was all that it took. Is these two, they were great friends. They hadn't spoken in a while. So just getting back together, reuniting, kind of chatting about old times, wondering what if, and just kind of saying, why not, really? Let's get together. Let's do this. Let's see if we can make that dream a reality.
Incredible. Wow. To think that, this whole project started from a single passionate YouTuber, and just asking the right questions, sparking the right, talking to Julian, sparking his interest, reigniting that in Ted. And here we are.
Mm-hmm.
On a side topic, I was talking publicly about the state of the video game industry and how disappointed I am to look back 10 years ago where we were. Mass Effect, Skyrim, right?
Mm-hmm.
BioShock. And look at where we're at now, where, we're selling tons of microtransactions for TikTok dances and really noisy lobbies in online games.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you're waiting to see if any one of us is going to disagree with you on that, but I don't think it's going to happen.
no, yeah.
No, not a disagreement, but what I'm trying to get at here is one of the things that I got to on that was, it's going to take, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls in the listening audience, it's going to take us. I would love to rely on these large video game studios. Let's just say Microsoft. Okay, Microsoft is obviously a tremendous gaming studio. That it's a conglomerate. It owns many other gaming studios, right? I would love to say like their next game is probably going to be fantastic because of their unlimited resources, but due to the incredible bureaucracy, it's really just not there. And here we are, OnceLost Games, a startup, just says, you know what, we're going to change this somehow, some way. I really, I see it as a Herculean endeavor on the part of your studio, and I think this is exactly what it takes. It's really inspiring, Victor, to hear you recount that. Really, this kind of came from a very passionate YouTuber.
Yeah.
Yeah, and passion's really the whole driving point behind the project as a whole. Even when we first started getting team members in, and they were unpaid, right? They're a volunteer basis working just to make this dream a reality, and that's just kind of been the core of the team, is just driven by passion.
Wow, unreal. So when exactly did game development begin, and what were the first challenges?
So that is kind of an easy answer and a hard one at the same time, or easy question, because it began with those conversations. It began with, Ted and Julian kind of sitting down and deciding they wanted to do this, and that was to put something of a time frame on it back in 2019. That was back when that happened. But a lot of the early challenges were, and keep in mind, I'm speaking anecdotally here. I didn't join myself until about 2021. A lot of those early challenges were simply just finding the team and finding the skills and finding the way to do it on a budget of zero. I mean, the fact is that the project is a volunteer project and has been for almost, I'm so glad I could say almost, its entire lifespan at this point. And that is something where you want to have the best people. You want to have, the best and brightest and the most talented, but usually the best, brightest, and most talented come with a price tag.
Sure.
And so a lot of the early struggles were, yes, Julian is an incredible programmer, but he's one man, and this is a big game. Yes, Ted is an incredible storyteller, but he's one man, and this is a big game. Yeah. And so a lot of those early struggles were just finding the people who were capable of putting in the time and effort, and kind of making some compromises where I've actually always been very proud of the fact that OnceLost Games is a place where we are incredibly open to people of all skill levels, as long as they are passionate enough and willing to put in the time and effort to increase their skill level to the necessary levels. And so,
wow,
it's one of those things where you could say that the development first began in 2019, but you could also say that it began when the team that we have now began to really solidify and really kind of cement itself in place, which happened right around the 2020-2021 era. So, like I said, easy answer and hard all at the same time.
Yeah, kind of recalling the foundations of Dungeons and Dragons. It sort of seems like D&D had a very similar creation as well, where it first started with a few ideas from Arneson. Gygax comes in, adds a couple more ideas. That it makes its way through the the commercial industry a little bit, and then we finally get to advanced D&D in the 80s, and it sort of feels like that. It's kind of hard to pinpoint where exactly development in Wayward Realms started, but it's just kind of like building on itself in a very blended sort of unique but also natural sort of a way.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. And I think Victor, who has been here for more of it than even I have, can probably attest to that as well.
Yeah, 100%. It's been fascinating to see how much this team has developed and grown. Just based on this vision that we all share.
I like the way you put that too, vision, because you need a lot of it. You need vision in order to. This isn't a paycheck, you know what I mean? Like the larger studios out there, they're happy to put that studio on their resume. They're happy to collect a big paycheck, but this isn't about that. It's about vision. It's about passion, and that really churns out a phenomenal product. I want to kind of get into some of the initial setbacks. What were those, and how, with a budget of $0, how did you overcome some of those initial setbacks?
Right. Well, that's probably the biggest setback, right? Just not having that funding behind it that
Right.
That you really need to get a good solid start. But I think another big thing is the first few team members came together in like mid to late 2019. And obviously right around the corner from that was COVID. So not only were people trying to work on this on their spare time, but then also their safety net of their actual job was kind of up in the air. Obviously, like we all felt that impact in one way or another. So there were some team members that were lost during that time, and that was sort of also sort of a setback as we continued developments. Just people come in, but life happens pretty much. Some might have a kid, some might be taking a new job, and it's like I don't have the time to contribute to the project anymore, and so we had to part ways with a few people here and there, which is always sad to see, but it's understandable when you wish them the best. Aside from that, just setback is learning how to set up a company, because neither Ted nor Julian had done any of the business side of things before. So it was a learning experience of all the things that you need in order to get a company off the ground and going. And it's something that we're still working out the kinks now, as now we do have some funding, and we've had to, be more specific about, hiring and contracts and all that lovely stuff that comes with it, which luckily we've got Kyle on board to take care of. Something I appreciate greatly.
I try my best.
Big brother IRS wants to know where that Kickstarter money's coming.
Yeah.
That's you got to account for all that, and these are things that maybe there's some young folks out there listening right now or in the future who are maybe they're going to Full Sail, right? Maybe they're trying to figure out, how do I get my game development chops? It's all great to be artistic. It's great to be creative, to be a creative writer. That'll take you really, really far. But if you've got your own vision in mind, listen, Ted Peterson, Julian Lefay, the fathers of the Elder Scrolls, they had to cross the business side as well. It's super important to learn that aspect of it. The language of business accounting is
Yeah.
As someone who is actively learning it as we speak, it is not easy, but it is worth it.
Yeah, for sure. Because then you can walk into a bank and be like, here are our books. Okay. This is what it looks like in the future. This is where we've come from. We need X amount so we can bring us into the future. Will you invest in us? It's a important conversation to have, for sure. I mean, I'm garbage at it. So anyone who's good at that, more power to them. Okay, so 5 years of development, right? If we're gonna put like a real hard date on things, roughly 5 years. Still years away from release. Now, can you explain what have been the advantages and the disadvantages you've experienced with a long development cycle? Like you've already been 5 years in development. You've got more to come. With a long development cycle, what are the advantages and the disadvantages of having that?
Yeah, I mean, so I would say the biggest advantage is the ability to really make sure that every aspect, every detail is very intentional. It's very well thought out, it's very well debated and discussed, and nothing is just thrown together because we need something, we need it out the door. It's given us the time to really be, and again, I like the word intentional about
Mm.
everything that the Wayward Realms is and everything that it will be. We have incredibly deep lore that's getting deeper day by day. We've got incredibly well thought out systems that are being iterated upon, daily.
Mm.
And we are doing everything in our power to make sure that when we put the Wayward Realms out the door, it is going to be what we intended it to be. And that is easily the biggest advantage. Now, the
Sure.
biggest disadvantage is essentially the fact that, again, we're building off of a completely volunteer team. And, Victor touched on it briefly. We haven't been able to keep everyone on. We haven't, some people needed things to happen sooner than they were able to, and it just wasn't possible. Um, and there's also sort of this other effect of it does create some of that conversation, I suppose, that maybe it's never going to happen, which is something that we never want to see. But obviously, when you're in the cooking stage for as long as you are, or as long as we have been, the conversation is almost inevitable.
Sure.
So I would say those are probably the biggest disadvantages.
Right. So from my perspective, I had been following development since around 2020, and very excited to hear at that time rumors. I was very disenfranchised with specifically Elder Scrolls. I had podcasted regarding that game for a long time, and became very upset over the direction that that it was heading in. Um, and then heard about your game and thought, wow, this is fantastic. Like, this is everything I would want in Elder Scrolls 6 and more.
Mm.
You know, and I don't even have to wait that long. But then like you're waiting a while and like no news, right? And I'm like, gee, what's going on? Let me take a dive here. And you see one rumor after another, and you think to yourself, like, where can I actually get information? So from my part, what's been incredibly helpful has been, the Discord, has been the AMAs that have been coming out. Just the steady flow of information when you have it, I think has really helped fans sort of understand this is a serious project. This is something that you can back with confidence, and progress is being done. And it helps us to understand exactly, you know, how severe the situation is, and why development is taking so long. So that's been the steady flow of information you guys have been doing has been fantastic.
Yeah, and I was gonna say I do want to give credit where it's due,
Mhm.
especially within the last year and a half. That has been largely Victoria. She's done incredible work, kind of revamping our social media presence
Yeah.
and making sure that we have that constant stream of communication and interaction with the community. It was Victor before that, and not to knock what Victor was doing, but he's one man and he can only do so much, and he already wears like 17 hats in the company
Yeah.
as it is.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a lot of hats.
So bringing Victoria on, like if you were looking for how we got over some of those disadvantages, I'd say Victoria has been instrumental in at least countering, the worry and the fear that maybe nothing was happening. She's been instrumental for that.
Thank you.
I wanna echo that as well, because I did notice when Victoria was announced, I did notice a huge increase in information. And just to kind of like maybe take a side note here for a second, I want to spend a moment with Victoria, and I want to ask you, when you first came into OnceLost Games, what were the challenges that you noticed, and what sort of solutions did you want to put in place in order to overcome those challenges?
I will say one challenge was that I felt there wasn't enough information out. And that kind of goes back to what Kyle was just saying about Victor does wear a lot of hats, and he was the one doing the social media prior. And he would make a post, I think it was on once a week on Fridays, with something new. And as a community member also following the project, I was following on YouTube and I think their Facebook page or something prior to actually joining the team. I would see those occasional Friday posts, and I was like, okay, cool. Like the fact that there is a post going out once a week tells me that, this hasn't been forgotten. It's not laying somewhere untouched.
Right.
But I really wanted more information for myself too, because I was just as excited as anybody else is. And I was like, where is this game going? How long is it going to take?
Yeah.
I just want to see more. I just want to see more. And so coming in originally as a community manager, that was kind of my priority goal, if you will, was how do I communicate more with this community and kind of tell them that, yes, we are working on the game. Yes, we are consistently working on the game. Yes, there's progress on the game, and being able to answer some of those questions. And I think really as far as the solution goes, it's just more communication. Far too many businesses on social media do not communicate with their audience enough, in my opinion.
Right.
You can look up big names and they'll post like twice a year. And that's just not enough for your audience. They have no idea what you're working on. And the more that you can tell, the more that you're building trust with your audience, the more you're able to answer questions that they clearly have over and over again. And the more interested they become, because you are authentic. You are showing that you're doing something. You are being consistent.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the more a game studio shares, the better off the community surrounding that game is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Now the vocal ones, I'm sure, there's going to be an increase in vocal toxicity for sure.
Sure.
But I mean that's kind of the job, right? Of community, of social, right? That's sort of part of it. You got to know how to. I was surprised. This last week or two, Minecraft came out with a massive update that they added a new pale garden biome.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't even know they were working on it. I had no idea that they were, this was something they were, and it just would have been nice if instead of just dropping this thing, which is cool, would have been nice to know, like, hey, this is
a little bit of a build up or something.
Yeah, so I'm really I love how you guys disseminate information now. It really makes I think it's made the community more vibrant because they do have confidence. It really has built confidence. So here we are, 2024, banner year for the development of Wayward Realms. Can you guys share with us some of the game's milestones in both development and community awareness?
I think, yes, absolutely we can. I think we have to start with the Kickstarter, right? Like that's just the big one that stands out in everybody's mind. We launched the Kickstarter at the very end of May, I believe. I think it was the last day of May, and it ran through all of June, essentially. We have raised over $748,000 on there by now.
Wow.
Pretty wild. And I think we have over 8,000 backers at this point. And that Kickstarter ended its, main campaign at the end of June. And we've accepted late pledges since then, and it's still growing every single day, which is absolutely insane at this point. I can't believe it's been, half a year and it's still going. It's wild to me.
Yeah.
But I'm obviously thrilled to see it happen. We've also have gotten over 100,000 wish list on Steam. We've grown over 66,000 in the last year, which is amazing.
Wow.
We've grown over 20,000 people on our different social media platforms. We've got 25,000 people that are subscribed on YouTube. So some really incredible growth there in all areas.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm glad we're talking about that Kickstarter campaign. I did have a question though regarding, the direction toward it and away from what seemed like, a very concrete direction up until, May of this year. And I'm talking about, ultimately the decision to abandon searching for a publisher. Why was the approach for a publisher ultimately abandoned, and what factors led to the idea of crowdfunding?
So I'm really glad that you asked this question because I think that it echoes something of what I would call probably the biggest misconception among the community.
Okay, yeah, let's dig in.
So up until now, you say that the plan was publisher, and to one degree, you'd be correct in that was the eventual goal was to land a publishing deal that would help us put Wayward Realms over the finish line. But I want to be very clear that we were never actively looking for a publisher in that time.
Really?
We were speaking to several, but it was more them reaching out to us with interest than us going out looking for publishing deals. So to be very clear, we were not actively looking for publishers. We were simply entertaining the conversations that came our way. Now, you ask why we quote unquote abandoned that pursuit in favor of the Kickstarter, and I would actually say that we have not abandoned it at all.
Right.
Arguably, what ended up happening instead was in the conversations that we had with those publishers, several things were made apparent to us, chief of which was that we needed to really kind of show them what we have in a way that a slideshow doesn't. It was kind of likened to, sharks in the water drawing first blood. None of them wanted to be the ones to take the first bite.
Right.
And so the idea of, crowdfunding had been kicked around the team several times over the last few years. I think we once previously said we would never do it. And then we were like, well, okay, maybe not never.
Yeah.
And essentially what it came down to was us kind of having a very candid conversation where we said, okay, we've done this as much as we can for free. We need some kind of funding in order to kind of really kick things into next year. But we know we're not going to land a publisher the way that we are right now. And so the Kickstarter was our way of proving to ourselves, to our community, to any potential investors or publishers, we have something here that people want. We have something here that people believe in and will spend the money on. And so the Kickstarter was in a lot of ways our response to, publishers in that regard, saying, hey, we are here. Not, us giving up on publishing, because to be very candid, this is going to be a project that takes a lot of money
Right.
to properly fund. And I want to be very clear, I'm very thankful for every single penny that we have received. It's been
Oh, sure.
literally life-changing.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to be very clear that I say that before I say what comes next. It's
Right.
not enough. It's far from enough for us to really fully fund this game. And so we haven't abandoned the publisher route.
Right.
Now, in fact, in the wake of the Kickstarter, I have been working towards getting the company into talks with numerous investors, maybe some publishers, showing them, hey, we have the successful Kickstarter. Do you want to be the next ones to kind of take a bite of this project? And so the Kickstarter was not us abandoning the publisher route.
Right.
It was the next step on that path.
Wow. That's really incredible. Because, to kind of, chat back and forth with some of the folks in the community, it really seemed like, you know, they're looking, the answer that you would get from the void is they're looking for a publisher. Wait, hold on. They're going to just crowdfund the whole thing. So now, so this is why, I love doing this show with you guys, because, we're getting, real information straight from, the horse's mouth. This is fantastic. So the clarification here is that the Kickstarter was to sort of let publishers know we have something worthy of investing. And now that that's been proven, okay, now that you've basically have shown in dollars market interest, now you can, now I'm sure. So any sharks in the tank taking nibbles?
None so far. Believe me, once one of the things that I'm sure is, like we were just talking about, trying to be more transparent with the community. I'm right there with Victoria. I was part of the push to be more transparent with the community. We will absolutely communicate once, something like that happens. We want to be very upfront so that way people know, hey, things are really going to kick into high gear kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because like ultimately that was one part of the Kickstarter. The other part was in order so that we could kick things into the next gear, so that way
Sure.
we could, steal some people full time to really properly develop the project instead of just in their spare time the way that people had been. So again, I want to stress the Kickstarter money has been literally life changing for most of the team at this point,
Oh yeah.
if not everyone. And so, you know, it's simply the first and very honestly bigger than expected drop in the bucket, and it is incredible. And I cannot stress enough how thankful we are to every last one of our backers during the original campaign period and since. Like Victoria said, we ended the campaign somewhere around 700,000, which was 200,000. Yeah, it was 200,000 more than what we were asking for.
Yeah.
And since then we have gained almost 50,000. So
That's almost half of what you were asking for, initially. Again,
yeah,
so you made it 100. So basically you're almost at 150% funded.
essentially, yeah. And
Yeah.
and that number, just to give you another peek behind the curtain, was it was pulled from what was the bare minimum that we could take to operate the company, for a set period of time in order for us to essentially push us into early access. And that 500,000 was bare minimum. We could make it work for 500,000, but it would be tight. So every penny we have received since then has been so incredibly helpful. It's allowed me to pay more people at, a higher rate than I initially expected. And it's really been so incredibly useful. And again, I
Right.
know I've said it like 3 times now. I am so thankful to every person who has backed.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, if there's any listeners out there who are aware of funding for any video game, the term this is a AAA game gets hurled around the internet like you wouldn't believe. You didn't even hear this 10 years ago on the internet,
Right.
on everyone's MySpace and Facebook. You didn't hear that. So a AAA game is really what's referred to AAA. It's a AAA loan from a bank, and that is worth millions.
Mm-hmm.
A AAA loan. So these game studios, they'll take out a AAA loan worth millions, telling the bank, "Listen, you're going to loan this to us. We're creating a product. It's going to take probably about 10 years to make, 7 to 10 years." Okay, and this is going to cost, this loan is going to take care of all of our costs from soup to nuts, right? That's what a AAA game is. So to think about that, not the time, but the funding of millions. Clearly you could see that the 500,000 for the Kickstarter is obviously just a step forward. But I did want to ask, what, and obviously this game is probably going to, once all said and done, probably take millions or $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
What was the $500,000 supposed to fund? And with the 200,000 overage, how did that overage affect those goals?
So, little bit of a not so secret trade secret. The reason that games are so expensive, it's not the technology, it's not the programs, it's not even like insurance, or it's people.
Yeah.
People are what are expensive, and the skill sets that it takes to fund a game to fund any game are not cheap skill sets. We're talking, people usually pay significant amounts of money just to learn them, and then they get paid significant amounts of money to apply them. So like a AAA game, most of that money is going to a studio that, employs like, hundreds, if not, more, people, all kind of doing these really, lucrative jobs essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And so the same is applied no matter what size of studio, and for us it's the same. That money was and is for our people. I would say a good 90%, which is I'm pulling that number out of thin air, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was accurate, of all of the money that we received from Kickstarter is going towards people.
Right. Worthy
So
investment.
yeah, so essentially we have a team of roughly 40 people. The 500,000, we weren't 100% sure how exactly we would divide it up, but we knew that it would get us a skeleton crew essentially. It would allow us to bring on 1 or 2 programmers full time. It would allow us to bring on a couple of artists full time. Essentially, it would give us the skeleton crew we needed to speed up development. And so, obviously, whoever didn't receive a paid contract, and we communicated this to the team, would still be more than happy to encourage them to stay on as volunteers, with the promise that once there was more money, obviously they would be roped in. And I still intend to keep that promise. But the extra overage, that $250,000, has been essentially, it's enabled me to hire more than just a skeleton crew.
Wow.
I
Propelling
actually
development, maybe.
Exactly. For every person that I was able to offer a contract to, I keep using the word I, but it is we.
Yeah.
For every person that we were able to offer a contract to, it really did. It's increased the speed of development significantly.
Wow.
And and I won't lie, it obviously didn't go to every member of the team because, again, people are expensive. But I am happy to say, because I think I mentioned it earlier, the passionate, the people who were passionate, there was a lot of people who volunteered to go without a salary. And the people
Wow.
the people who did accept one or ask for one, I was able to give one to, I think, almost every person who asked.
Wow.
And that was because of that overage.
Incredible. You hear a lot of folks these days, really saying let's invest in people and not necessarily X, Y, and Z, right? And here we have, a really a grassroots example of where you're providing a product and a service that we're all looking forward to. You asked the community, can you propel us into full-time status for at least a year and a half?
The funding will last a year. Development will go a year and a half. We are hoping to receive additional funding before then, but assuming we're not, we'll go back to a volunteer status. We'll see how it plays out.
Okay. And then here we go. Boom. We're that money is now, those funds are now funding people's lives.
Yes.
In a direct way. Fantastic.
In a quite literal way, yes.
Yeah.
I think it also speaks back to Victor talking about passion earlier. There are many people on the team who offered to take lower salaries than what they would normally get just so they could work on this game because that's what they want to do.
Yeah.
And I want to say this to the team, any of the team who might be listening, and just so that way, the people of the community hear it as well. I am incredibly thankful for every single one of them, because the passion really does show in the fact that we've had people who are worth significantly more than what they asked for. They asked for such a small amount because they knew that the lower the amount they asked for, the more people would be able to receive that funding. They are not just dedicated to the vision of the Wayward Realms, but to each other.
Right.
And it has created one of the most incredible work environments I have ever been a part of.
Man, congratulations, guys. Absolutely incredible. It's really wonderful to hear how this incredible Kickstarter, how it's turned it out. And for the better of everyone. So on the idea of development, and this might be like a moot question. You can kind of let me know. But in development for the next year and a half, right? What systems, features, elements are you most confident with, and which ones are going to receive the most attention in the next year going forward?
Can I take the cheap producer answer here and say I'm not confident in anything until it ships?
Tell us all this garbage.
Yeah, no, but there's certainly lots of things that are in flux right now, and it's really hard to say for sure how well they'll come out on the other end. I have absolutely no doubt whatsoever in our design. I think we've got a lot of really fantastic ideas. They're kind of somewhere between like the old classic, old school RPGs and like more modern. I don't want to say simplified, but I guess more accessible. And so I think we've got a really good halfway point for our design and really deep systems, which I'm really excited about. Like, we were trying to go over some system today, and we barely made it through like a third, no, maybe like a quarter of it before we ran out of time and realized like, okay, we're gonna have to do this another meeting,
Right.
just because like we do have so much in there that's designed. But as far as like actual implementation, that's all currently being worked on. There's a lot of tooling going on right now, so there is still a lot of up in the air. But I mean, I'm very confident our team will be able to pull off the designs and really bring these things to life. It's just a matter of how deep can we get them by time for early access? And we'll keep updating early access with more features and more depth as it goes along. But it's still at that point where me as producer wants to say, well, let's wait till we're almost ready to launch, and then I can tell you better which systems are really great.
Right.
I will say combat absolutely getting a lot of focus here in this next coming year. So that's going to be one that's very important. So are quests.
Okay. Victoria, over to you on this.
As far as features of the game, I'm really not the person to address that to be perfectly honest. I can tell you that in this next year, we're going to have a merch store launched, and so you'll be able to buy all kinds of t-shirts and hoodies and things like that. I've got a lot of focus going on that stuff, and
man, I can't wait for that.
we're already talking about the next devlog, which will probably be maybe mid of next year sometime, but we've got some plans for that. So hopefully that'll be a really nice, more gameplay focused and more in-depth focused kind of video that I know the community really wants. They always want more gameplay videos, and I get it. So those will probably be some of the main highlights of next year for social media marketing team anyways.
Awesome. I can't wait. I can't wait to wear my Wayward Realms hoodie.
That's right.
Well, just a quick clarification. That'll be this year by the time this episode launches.
Oh, that's right. Sorry. This podcast does go out later. So in 2025, yes.
All right. Anyone else want to weigh in before we move on?
I mean, I would just say that the systems that have so far received the most attention are ironically some of the background systems, or what should be considered quote unquote background systems. So I noticed a lot of people are super into like the water and the weather and things like that. And honestly, we have some really cool stuff happening with all of that. So I get the feeling a lot of people are going to be paying a lot of attention to that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, just what you released last year alone was incredibly impressive. That's what, Unreal 5?
Yes, we are actually. So you want to talk about recent updates? Oh, well, recent as of recording. We just moved the project into Unreal 5.5.
Oh,
yeah.
I like it.
Which, again, as of the recording of this, is the most recent version of Unreal Engine. Although I think we have said that this is where we're going to put the kind of like the stopper on it. I don't think we plan on moving to Unreal 5.6 when that eventually gets rolled out. It does largely depend on what fancy new toys Epic gives us to play with.
Okay. So, in 2025, all right, what does success look like at the end of the year? And I'm talking about like not what you likely are going to see. I want to hear the fanciful. Well, maybe I don't want to hear the fanciful, because the fanciful goal is that it ships in 2025, right? So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So maybe bring us down to reality. What does success look like for the game in 2025?
I mean, I think the merch store is a really big thing for us. That is coming out very, very soon, and I know the community has been begging for a merch store. They've been begging for t-shirts. They've been begging for cloth maps. They've been begging for hoodies, and they are on the way. So that is one check mark that will make success. And then, of course, there's the early access, which everybody wants, which we are planning for late 2025 to drop. And of course, ultimately releasing the early access and making sure that people are overall happy with it. And of course, it'll be a testing time for us as well as the community. I'm sure there'll be some things that happen that we have to work out, but ultimately, if people are excited about the direction, then that's a success. And then Ted's lore book is another big one. So Fool Me Once, if you reserved a copy of that on Kickstarter, we'll be shipping those out in late 2025 along with early access as well. And I'm very excited for people to read the prequel novel, Fool Me Once.
What about you, Kyle? What does success look like in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, not to echo Victoria too heavily, but it is going to be heavily focused on the merch store and the early access launch. Hopefully, not to paint the sky too blue, but I'm hoping that the early access launches on time and as intended. Um, and ultimately beyond that, just from a back end kind of thing, I'm hoping that we find at least one partner who believes in this as much as we do and invests in us, so that way we can really kind of go forward. But ultimately, even without that, assuming the early access again launches successfully, that should go a long way towards paving the road towards the full development as well.
Okay. I think it was about 10 years ago. I had an incredible opportunity to sit across the table from Pete Hines from Bethesda and interview him on a podcast. And he shared with me some wisdom that I think only a man in his position would be able to share, and that's he likes to invest in people, not necessarily the project. And if anyone out there is listening, these are the people to invest in. Passionate, willing to literally fall on a sword for this project because they love it so much. And I just don't think you can get better quality out of folks regarding a project, and that of course indicates the success of the project once it goes gold. Victor, what about you? Success in 2025 as creative director. Do you have any things, any creative visions that you would like to see in this year the game espouse?
Well, I guess for me, the biggest thing is just getting that early access out and start getting that feedback in.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it's great feedback, but I know like we're going to be taking everything to heart. We're going to be making sure that we are putting out the best product that we can. So even if it's not glowing feedback, if we're getting some rough feedback, like that's perfectly fine with me too. That's an opportunity to improve, and that's what I like to think we're all about.
Absolutely. I do want to jump on that a little bit. A personal philosophy of mine has always been that, you know, failure is the best teacher. Not that I hope we fail, but, negativity is one part of the process. I don't expect that we're going to put out a perfect game. I do expect that there's going to be that negative feedback. And honestly, I'm looking forward to it because I know that the negative feedback, as long as it's constructive and not just negative for the sake of negativity,
Right.
will be instrumental in making sure that the game is the best it could possibly be.
I don't think you're going to get that. I think where you get negative feedback for the sake of being negative is when a series has been out for a while, has established what it does, and then there's a huge shift away from what it does in a quality standpoint, and maybe even from a general approach. So, for example, like if the next game that OnceLost Games comes out happens to be a 2D platformer with a Cambion in it,
I mean, hey,
Spoilers.
spoilers, man.
like that. I think that might be where it comes from. But I don't think you guys are going to get that kind of negative feedback.
Well,
Yeah.
I would like to maybe pitch in a little bit here and say that I think a large part of our audience, particularly the younger crowd of us, do expect a Skyrim game specifically, and I'd like to just kind of correct the record and say that we're not making Skyrim.
Right.
So if that is what you're expecting from the Wayward Realms, change your mind on that because that's not what we're creating. I do think that's kind of a misconception, and I get it. Skyrim has been around for a long time. It's got a massive audience. I know exactly why people think that way, but the important part of what we're doing is that it's like Daggerfall. It's not like Skyrim, so it's a very, very different kind of ball game if you've never played both before.
Yeah. I actually am thinking about streaming Daggerfall relatively soon, and the difference between streaming Skyrim and streaming Daggerfall, other than who comes in your chat room, is that keyword gameplay. It took me a little while to get used to that myself, but I greatly appreciate where it is, because you know what I can do is, and maybe this is just me, but I like to keep a little notepad next to my mouse with a pen, and I just, okay, this is what he's saying. So I was at this location, talked to this guy, and I heard this. And maybe it's just the old cop in me who likes to do that. But I did enjoy that aspect of it. It seemed to be a little bit more. It was a different style, and I appreciated that sound. I'm really looking forward to doing that here in
I grew up playing Asheron's Call, and if you've ever played Asheron's Call, you would know this. But Asheron's Call was very much like, it didn't save any journal details for you. You had a built-in journal feature in the game that you could leave your own notes for yourself, or you do what I do, which was have a notebook next to your computer, and anytime an NPC said something that sounded important, you jotted it down on your notebook and hope that you could find it later. That's what you did.
Those old paper maps that you drew while crawling through a dungeon.
Oh yeah, 100%. They were horrible dungeons, honestly. You always got lost.
So, shameless plug for a moment. I've never played, I had never played Daggerfall when I first joined the project. And so on our YouTube, there is a video where we were aware that several of members of the team had never played it before. And so we put together a game night on the team where we got together, as many people as we could, some who had played, some who hadn't. And we put everyone through the gauntlet of the first dungeon in
Privateer's Hold.
The first dungeon in Daggerfall. That was my first ever time playing Daggerfall in my life.
Yeah.
And it doesn't paint me in the best light because admittedly I didn't make it far. But it is a hilarious video. But I since I have the platform for a moment, I'm going to set the record straight that the way that video is edited, it makes it seem like I was just slower than everyone else. I want to be very, we were going one at a time and I went first. So
it's called storytelling, Kyle.
Everything that I was taking my time on, everyone else got to skip because I took my time on it.
Right.
So I want to set the record straight. Like it's hilarious. I love that video.
Poor Kyle. He was the penitent man that wasn't so penitent and didn't pass.
I love that video. It's hilarious. I still laugh because so for the record, again, I hadn't seen the video until it launched. So John, who was the one who provided the voiceover and the editing, and he did a fantastic job. I still laugh at how he described me. And so it's one of those things where it's a hilarious video where you get to watch, the people who were charged with creating the successor to Daggerfall. Several of them experienced Daggerfall for the first time, and it is, in my humble opinion, hilarious.
I think what I'll do is I'll add the link to that, because I saw it myself when it first came out. I think I'll add the link to that to our show notes.
Pretty good. Yeah.
And have listeners check it out. So check out the show notes if you can, folks, and you'll get to that video right away. Okay, well, that's our show, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, wayward wanderers. That is our show. I want to thank Victoria, Kyle, and Victor for all being here today, sharing your thoughts and, of course, your time, which is precious. with all of us.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Do it again soon.
Indeed. Next month, actually. So same bat time, same bat channel, the last Tuesday of the month. If you're wondering, how can I support this incredible game other than diving headlong into the future merch store and walking around with your Wayward Realms tankards and hoodies and t-shirts and footwear.
Footwear.
I want Wayward Realms slippers. I take a 15 double wide.
Nice. I'm adding it to the list, Joe, just for you.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Please wishlist Wayward Realms on Steam. It's a huge help. Hang out with us on Discord, found at waywardrealms.com. Follow us on all social media at OnceLost Games. Like, share, and smash that notification bell on YouTube at OnceLost Games. We'll see you in our travels. And until then, happy exploring.